If you've never seen any of the Rocky movies,
You deserve to die!
just kidding.
Not!
No, I am. Everyone deserves to live. Unless you think Medea movies are bad, then it's debatable. The point is, the way the Phillies have been going the last several years, including this one, is pretty fitting with the character of Rocky, who is, of course, based in Philly. It's all about continuously getting knocked down, which is exactly what the Phillies have constantly experienced since 2022, and it's gotten worse each year. They go to the World Series in 2022, so close to winning it all, then they lose to Houston. Then they're steamrolling on their way back to the World Series just to get knocked out by a crazy underdog in the D-bags and the round before the World Series, only to get eliminated even sooner in 2024, arguably the most painful way to go out, losing to the Mets in the first round of the playoffs. So not only are you repeatedly getting heartbroken, but it's getting increasingly miserable. 3 years in a row of that. And they say third time's a charm, but the way the Phillies are going right now, and really overall in 2025, maybe it's fourth time's a charm. So thank you for being here. Subscribed or not. And if you haven't joined the 49% elite humans, consider hitting that button if you enjoy the videos, as thanks to a combination of the Phillies just simply being a good team, but also the Mets crumbling, it really looks like they're running away with the division. A division that not only looked to be a dogfight, but one the Mets were probably going to win. About a month ago, I would have told you this was the Mets division to lose. Well, turns out I'm wrong. Very wrong. At least it seems that way. We have a lot left. Crazier things have happened, but this is now the Phillies division to lose. Now, this year's Phillies, in some ways, in a lot of ways, are actually weaker than recent years. Throughout this entire run of making the postseason since 2022, the 2025 Phillies are the weakest offense on paper. For example, Nick Castellanos not having a good season offensively, and in that case, overall, he's not having a good year because he's not some defensive wizard. Speaking of wizards, Wizard 101 is actually hitting consoles soon, which is sick. Real ones know how legendary that game is. But yeah, if Castellanos isn't hitting, overall, he's not a very productive player. In fact, he's a very unproductive player. His WAR, aka wins above replacement, is negative 1.1. So he's adding negative value to this team. Max Kepler, who the Phillies signed on for this year after all his time in Minnesota, has been very bad. Alec Bohm, not a good season. Brandon Marsh has been meh. JT Realmuto has been meh with the bat. Bryson Stott, not a good hitter, but I'm not saying this to trash these guys. Especially at this point in their careers, this is a lot of like who they are. You can't expect that much from them. I'm going to bring Castellanos for another example. He's already shown regression hitting wise before this season. My point is more so it actually makes this team more fascinating. I'll get into more of that in a bit, but overall this offense isn't as strong. But there's one constant with this offense. Well, two constants. I guess three if you count Trey Turner, even though he didn't come along until 2023. But no matter what year it is, there are two guys you can count on to hit baseballs harder than the train that hit my grandfather. Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper. Kyle Schwarber has been worth every cent he was given by the Phillies when he signed with them before 2022. Holy crap. He was relatively the same in production in the first 3 years of this contract. Lots of strikeouts, but lots of power, lots of walks, especially 2023 and 2024. His on-base skills have improved each year, and this year, he's taken everything to a new level. Not only is he just slugging bombs per usual, but he currently leads baseball in home runs, also in RBIs. His on-base percentage is really good. He's just incredible. And then you have Bryce Harper, who I wouldn't call underrated. I think he's properly rated, but he does feel underrated, though. He definitely has gotten overshadowed by other stars lately, some even on his own team, like Schwarber. But Harper has continued to be as reliable as Tyler Perry dropping a Medea banger when it comes to dropping good seasons. He's awesome. I saw some posts recently, I think it was by MLB, that Harper has now spent as many years in Philly as he did with the Nats and how weird that was, although I don't actually think it's weird at all. He feels more like a Philly than he does a Nat, and it's been that way at least for a couple of years now, for sure. It's obviously the cap he'll have on his Hall of Fame plaque, and yeah, he's been quietly awesome, per usual. And then Trey Turner, not necessarily lighting the world on fire, but he's been really good, leads baseball in hits. I mean, what more do you want from a guy like him? Okay, now the pitching. Like the offense, not as strong as years past. It has its issues, including a real big one, which we'll get into, but don't get it wrong, this pitching staff has some dogs. Christopher Sanchez, one of the biggest all-star snubs of all time. Jacob Misiorowski made it over him, which was very controversial for obvious reasons. As electric as Misiorowski is, he was in the league for about 8 minutes when he was selected, while Sanchez had actually pitched well for an entire half of the season. The Phillies guys were pissed. They weren't shy about how they felt. Again, nothing personal to Misiorowski. Good for him. I'm happy for him. But when you see how he's been in the second half, him getting the all-star nod over Sanchez, just looks even goofier now. It looks like nominating Jared Leto for Best Joker over Heath Ledger, but whatever. All-star or not, Sanchez has been awesome. One of the best pitchers in baseball this year. Jesus Luzardo, he did fall off after an insane start, but he's still good. Ranger Suarez hasn't been as good lately, but he still can get back to what he was at the beginning of the year. Hell, Taijuan Walker has been good. To go from someone who couldn't seem to breathe without giving up runs, someone the entire city of Philly probably wanted publicly shamed, to go from that to an actual solid starter is a redemption arc that's
a surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
Then there is not even just the bad news, but the scary news. Zack Wheeler. Not his talents, those haven't gone anywhere. He's still one of the game's best pitchers, hands down, but he's currently out with a blood clot situation. He recently had to get surgery to remove a blood clot in his right upper extremity, aka his arm. Obviously much more serious than a typical arm issue. Not even because it knocks him out longer, which is what an elbow or shoulder issue would, but this is potentially life-threatening. It's a blood clot we're talking about here, so it's obviously vital they handle this with a lot of caution for his return, and his current timetable on a return it's not known. They just don't really know. Hopefully, first and foremost, he's okay health-wise. And then from a baseball standpoint, that's of course a big arm that, if not able to come back this year, hurts a lot. So let's hope again for the best, firstly with his health just in general, but also that he can come back soon. Then there's the bullpen, one that's been kind of a mess, but it's like a fun mess. Well, first you have Jordan Romano, who unfortunately doesn't know the rules to baseball. He doesn't understand that giving up runs is bad. He thinks the higher your number is, the better. But no, for a pitcher, it's like golf. You want the lowest score possible. Most people know that. So, it seems like a simple fix, but he can't wrap his head around it. So he keeps giving up runs like, shit, he forgot again. His ERA is over 7.5. Then you have Jose Alvarado, who does understand the rules of baseball, that you want to give up the least amount of runs possible. But what he unfortunately forgot was that you can't inject needles up your ass. Big no-no. Well, thankfully, Tanner Banks is having a breakout year. Orion Kerkering is good. You have 42-year-old David Robertson recently coming aboard. Then you have Nicolas Cage out here with one of the greatest quotes of all time regarding why Pokemon cards are a better investment than sports cards, by the way. So true. You're not going to find freaking Gengar out here getting Tommy John or Greninja getting arrested talking to minors. Bro, speaking facts. He also stole the Declaration of Independence and made a glove out of it. So as chaotic as this bullpen may be, at the very least it's a fun chaotic, and adding Joan Duran doesn't hurt. There's a lot I can say about him, but let's just put it this way. Anyone who can make Cal Raleigh, who hits home runs as normally as Elon Musk gets women pregnant, if you can make him look like some asshole who just picked up a bat for the first time in his life, you're good. You're a good pitcher. So this team has talent, 1000%, but it's still a team that's not necessarily as sexy as they were in, say, 2024 last year, when almost the entire offense was good, and the same went for the pitching. There's more flaws to this team overall, but it actually makes it cooler of a story, because think about it. What did I talk about earlier? They've repeatedly not only just gotten knocked down each year in the playoffs, but earlier in the playoffs each year. And now you have a team that's on paper weaker with more question marks than those teams that collapsed late. So in theory, or on paper, it's like, okay, they're inevitably going to not only just collapse, but even sooner than they ever have. But no, that's the twist, at least with the way I'm looking at it. This team that's more flawed is actually the one that, in many ways, it's more poetic. And it would make more sense to get all the way back to the World Series and maybe even win it this time, because there's even more urgency, more of a reason to fight and play harder than they ever have. With these flaws, the other versions of this team didn't have as much. And this most recent series between the Phillies and Mariners is what really prompted me to make this video, because of how much of a statement it was. And also this guy who's been commenting on several videos now, screaming at the clouds for me to acknowledge his Phillies. Shout out to you, bro, for real. I see you. And you're 100% right that I should be talking about this team. Also, shout out Philly fan 07, bro is under every one of my videos. Your support doesn't go unnoticed. And shout out some random guy, not random at all. His name is Jacob. Great dude, big Phillies fan. We just played MLB The Show the other day. You guys are great. I mentioned Ranger Suarez and how much he struggled after his first 2 great months of this season. Well, he looked a lot like that first 2-month self of his, pitching into the 7th inning, only giving up a couple of runs and striking out 10 Mariners. Unfortunately, Romano did his silly, goofy thing again with the giving up runs thing, but thankfully the Phillies offense had no issues against Logan Gilbert, which is rare. Nobody should have no issues against that dude. He's filthy. Well, not to the Phillies in this first game. He didn't even last more than 2 innings. Phillies dropped 6 runs in the 2nd inning. Trey Turner showing his pop. Same with JT Realmuto. Then one of the constants, Bryce Harper, going deep, not once, but twice. His first homer going 440 feet, something he scoffed at, so he smacked smacked his second one at 448 feet. Phillies drop a dozen runs and win before the other constant immediately goes deep to start game 2. First inning, bomb. Phillies put up 4 runs off of Bryce Miller and another 2 off a great Mariners bullpen, while Christopher Sanchez, for the most part, makes the Mariners look like actual seamen attempting to play baseball for the first time. 12 strikeouts, he pitches into the 7th inning, and their own bullpen gets the job done too, including Nicolas Cage. Again, 42-year-old David Robertson punching out 2 in a scoreless 8th inning. That's badass, followed by Joan Duran locking it down. Well, the third and final game of this series looked to be different. Julio Rodriguez starts things off with a bomb off Jesus Luzardo. It's like, okay, they lost the first 2 games, but here they are with an early lead. They have Luis Castillo on the mound. All right, here they go. Never mind. Phillies instantly answer back with a run. Then Bryson Stott, who had a good series, drives in another one home in the second. Max Kepler joins in on the fun. Again, he's been bad this year, but maybe he'll get it going. Home run, skip to the 7th inning. It's a 1-run game. Phillies go off for 5 runs. Stott drives another one home. Trey Turner does the same. Then Schwarber grounds one in a right. Throw home is as accurate as a stormtrooper. Go to the 8th. It's now 8-2. Turner drives home another run. And then death, taxes, finance bros popping Adderall, and Kyle Schwarber hitting a home run. 11-2 Phillies win. Every Philly starter in this series had at least 10 strikeouts. Suarez had 10. Sanchez had 12. Luzardo had 12. This really couldn't have been much more of a bloodbath for all 3 games. From the Phillies offense going crazy, and their pitching mostly dominating, and we're talking about a good team here that they were facing, only for the Phillies to just make them look like the Rockies cosplaying as Mariners. Another postseason collapse could very well happen. Hell, this division isn't even won yet. There's still that to make sure they gotta secure over the Mets. But the Phillies don't have to go very far to understand all these times of them falling and getting knocked down in the end is exactly what actually breeds success. If you haven't seen the Rocky movies, what are you doing with your life? If you have, you know what I'm talking about. It's not all about knocking the other guy down. In fact, it's never really what it's about. It's about constantly getting knocked down, like 2022, 2023, 2024, and getting up each time when everyone counts you out. And 2025 may very well be that ultimate success story, ironically, with the most flawed Philly team we've seen yet in recent years. Let me know your thoughts, and thank you for watching. Love you. Bye.